Well, hey, everyone. It's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you're at work, in the car, wherever you are, we hope you enjoy the show. Please give it a like and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Radio Public, and Spotify. You can get all the weekly Geocache Talk goodness. Big thanks to the Travel Bugs for the music, and next week we will have the Travel Bugs on the show. And our featured patrons tonight are Demon Hunter 2, Electric Water Boy, Aggie Jedi Master, Antaeus, Joshua, the geocaching vlogger, Nick Cashley, One Kind Word, Butterfly Girl, Loon Trackers, the Aussie Geocacher, and our new patrons, Little Black Dog, Irish Allen, CJ Hove, Lady Black Cat, and RAR 285. If you'd like to become a patron, head on over to patreon.com/geocache talk for more details. Patrons get the new blackout coins. Jesse's showing the blackout coin, maybe. There it is.
There we go.
Blackout coin. Woo. There you go. Blackout coin.
Look, there's a number on the back.
Oh, yeah. Kidding. Look. Just kidding. Fooled you. There is a number.
Not for that one.
Yeah, not that one. Other geocaching items during the year, we're working on something for our ammo can level folks.
Something different.
We're working on that, and we'll have different things too during the year for other of the levels. Support levels do start at the Bison Tube level, which is $3 a month. Lock and Lock level is $5, and of course, ammo can is $8, and the mythical golden ammo can is $10. I guess we don't have a category for. we only got a couple of those, so they're the very golden ammo can group. We'll have to create a name for that one or something, Jesse, and Patreon.
There you go.
So let me welcome my co-host, Jesse.
Good evening. Good evening for the middle of a long weekend, actually, for me. So.
That's right. You got tomorrow off, huh?
That's right.
Good for you, man. I normally do, but I don't have it in my new job, so it's kind of weird that they don't have Martin Luther King Day off. So my wife does, so it's kind of odd. Anyway, it is odd. Let's jump right into show 133 for January 20th. We got to update the notes here as we welcome to the show Laura Cox, aka Perky.
Hey,
AKA
guys.
Benchmark Blasterz. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Gary, can I just take a second and invite everyone to come and discover my daughter's discoverable Christmas tree?
Yes.
Right here.
There it is.
And we'll show that maybe one more time during the show.
Yep. And while
DEQ.
Yep. And while you're showing it, why don't you explain, why do you have the Christmas tree there, Perky?
Well, this is the discoverable Christmas tree right here.
Right.
And we were in the hospital with her one Christmas, and we didn't have anything to do. And so I went down, I bought this very small little Christmas tree. It was the last one they had at Medical City. And then everything that we could steal, beg, borrow, and and otherwise obtain from the nurses, we used that to make our Christmas ornaments for this. And she had a little Christmas cheer. Awesome. We were discharged the day after Christmas, and then we decided that we should just make this something that would bring a little joy to everybody. And so it's our discoverable Christmas tree.
That's awesome. Yep. GXYDEQ. I like it. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Perky. Very cool. All right, so let's jump in. We're going to do a little bit of news, and then we'll jump into the show itself. So a couple news items. One thing that I did mention is that the Travel Bugs, aka Steve Weeks, it's just Steve. He's going to be on the show. He's going to be on the show next Sunday, but he is raising some money to go to the GeoCoin Fest 2019 in England. Why am I drawing Manchester? He's going to Manchester. I had drew a blank there for a second, but anyway. And so there's a website you can go to. We'll mention it next week, obviously, on the show. But if you want to go donate, he's got some different cool items depending on what you're interested in. But it's travelbugsmusic.com/donate/. And that's the website to go to donate, to help Steve get there. And we'll talk about it more next week, but I wanted to at least put that out there. Next item is something that I had heard about, and this is really Joshua, the geocaching vlogger's idea. We're all participating as a group. The podcasters, the vloggers, and pretty much anybody who's interested can be involved with this week we've got going the
Geocache Appreciation Week.
Yeah, Geocaching Appreciation Week. Hashtag #IHeartGCHQ. And there's a couple different ways to do it. We've got in the show notes snail mail. So if you want to actually pin a letter to Groundspeak, dear Groundspeak, thank you so much for everything. Anyway, I've got that in there. I've got the actual address that you can mail a little enveloped note to them, or whatever you want to do. Send them a path tag. I don't know. Do whatever you feel you want to do. I've also got an email form link, and I actually did this, Jesse, yesterday, and I got a note back from Geocaching HQ. I thought that was kind of funny, because it's normally like where people go to complain about things. So I had to choose other, and I had to kind of be. The options aren't really. There isn't a thank you option.
Right.
So
I don't think they expect to get thank yous too often.
What a shock. Yeah. So I got a note back from going, oh, thanks so much. And I've been putting a bunch of stuff on Twitter. I don't know if you noticed, I put some on Instagram, and I've been putting stuff on Facebook. So we're just encouraging people to show a little love to GCHQ. So anyway, please join in with that.
Yeah, just a little fun. Just a fun way to say thank you.
Yeah, a little thing. And if you want to go check out the vlogs, there's a lot of them out there. There'll be more during the week, so they're kind of fun. I've been appreciating the vloggers putting that together, and I appreciate Joshua doing this. This was his idea, so we're definitely willing to support him and all that. So, all right, on to a weird story of a found GPSR.
Well, you just ruined the whole story.
Oh, I did? Okay. Never mind what I said.
Forget that. We'll edit that out later, right?
No,
yeah. So you know something has to be up if I have one of these, which is a GPS with me when I'm going geocaching, and took advantage of the long weekend yesterday and went up to Wyoming and caching with some buddies. Got about 45 caches, and we get to a letterbox, and it was an actual letterbox, like where it takes you to a GPS point. Then it gives you clues to like go to the next area in the next area or whatever, instead of just taking you straight to it. And we had a couple DNFs during the day. We got 45 finds and 2 or 3 DNFs and one that needed to be archived. And so all in all, we got a lot of caches that day, but this one hadn't been found since October. And we walk up to the cache, and there was it's an Oregon 450. It was a GPS just laying there right next to the cache container.
That's crazy. Face
up, wasn't messed up or anything, and it's been out there since October. So it's been out there for 3 months. Turns out the last cacher that had been there was the one that left it there. I contacted him. It's still fired up and still had battery, and had been out there for that long. So I guess there is something to be said for a waterproof, non-battery hog device as opposed to a phone. Now, granted, even having said all that, I'm still not going to cache with a GPS. I'm only going to cache with a phone. But I was pretty impressed with the little device, and it's actually a guy from down there in Texas.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get that back to him or whatever. But he was quite shocked to find that after 3 months, somebody found his GPS and was going to send it back to him. So that was pretty neat. But
that is incredible.
And it capped off a good day. He was very excited. We used the geocaching feature where you message each other back and forth or whatever. But it capped off a pretty good day because we got to return getting to return a GPS to somebody. So So that's always fun. That's always awesome. A good, funny story. But
yep.
And then I didn't get the cash today because I was doing some more work on the next book in the geocache challenges. So we're not going to talk about that tonight. That's for another show. But no caches, just writing today. So good weekend all in all, though.
That is. That's awesome. Yeah, that's crazy that Oregon's still fired up after 3 months. That's incredible. You could write us. Garmin may want to have you do a commercial.
There you go
for their Oregon. So
they wouldn't have me in it if they've ever heard me talk.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not a GPS cacher.
I can see you now in the commercial. I don't use these devices because I have.
But I hear they're really good.
Because I have a smartphone. But if you don't want to do that, use the Oregon. No, I'm kidding.
That's right.
All right. Well, we got big show tonight. We got a lot to talk about, so we're going to jump right into talking about benchmarks. And this kind of interesting. This kind of came about actually almost not quite a year ago. It's been a while back, but Jesse and I actually met Perky in Denton. And I think it was a person on the committee said, I might have been, I don't know if it was Electric Water Boy. I forget who it was, Perky. I don't remember. But anyway, somehow we got into a conversation about benchmarks, and we're like, oh, it'd be awesome. We'd love to have you on the show. So here we go. You're on the show. Yay! We can talk about benchmarks. So you have found over 3,000, right?
Right.
Yep. That's awesome. And we're going to get into all the different types tonight. I was fascinated. We had a little test run on Friday, and we've been talking off and on, and I've been really fascinated to hear stories because I told you, Perky, the fact that when I think of a benchmark, my initial thought is it's the brass. I said copper, but it's brass disc in the ground. But there's so much more to it, and that's what we're going to get into tonight. And I think it's fascinating. But so if you were to Google benchmarks and do some looking around, you do find out some information. I didn't realize this. It says the term benchmark originates from the chiseled horizontal marks that surveyors made in stone structures into which an angle iron could be placed to form a bench, in quotes, for a leveling rod, thus ensuring that a leveling rod could be accurately repositioned in the same place in the future. These marks were usually indicated with a chiseled arrow below the horizontal line. And interesting. I guess that's how they kind of all started, right?
That is, and they came from the United Kingdom, and I'm going to draw one of those.
Yeah, draw.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is called a crow's foot benchmark, and there would be, and your survey point is that red dot there in the middle.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay, and the crow's foot part of that refers to a government mark. Okay. And then the line there is where you have the bolt that you can stick your leveling rod on. That's those are your early ones over in the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. We actually do have 4 of these kinds of benchmarks in the United States.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they are in Chandler, Arizona, on the London Bridge. Because they brought the London Bridge over, and there are 4 of those.
And they brought it over, right? It's so. Oh, wow. So
if you are a waymarker and you need a UK benchmark and you're not going to Ireland or Great Britain, you can go to Arizona, and there they are.
There you go. You can log a British waymark. I love it. That's crazy. Yeah, that's true. Okay. I like it. I like it. And we're gonna get to some things detailed, some things that are not. We're gonna kind of just sort of go with the flow, and we'll kind of hit. We're gonna hit a lot tonight, but and there's a lot more we could do. Maybe we'll do another show in the future we may
come back.
Yeah, we could do like a real detailed one sometime if this goes really well and so forth. But one thing I thought was interesting. I was talking to my son about this today, and he kind of perked up. So I thought this was something that we could start with, because I found these to be fascinating, and then we'll kind of go from there. And that is something you mentioned, which are crown stones. Let's talk for a moment, if we can, about crown stones. Oh, by the way, tonight we're also going to log a benchmark, in case you're wondering. Well, that's later on. We're going to log one so you can kind of know the process. In case you found one, you're like, I have no idea what to do with it now because I don't know how you log this thing. Or other questions. And if you have questions, please link to the chat room. If you go to Geocache Talk, you go below where you found the show. There is a link that says to the live chat room. If you click on it, you could join us in the live chat room, and there's a conversation going on there. And if you have questions, Jesse and I are going to try to watch that and capture your questions for Perky, and we'll go from there. Mm-hmm. But let's talk a little about crown stones, because I found this interesting about Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon.
Well, I was going to Philadelphia for a conference. And so I started looking around for some interesting benchmarks that I might be able to find when I was up there. And the first one I'm finding, it said Maz Dix. And I, as the monumenter, and it's like, who is that? Mason and Dixon. Okay, I'm going to find that one, right?
Right.
Because those are the most famous surveyors, in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to go find those. And it turned out that the ones that I was wanting to look for were on the grounds of a chemical plant. Mm-hmm. And so I had to call up there and kind of talk my way and charm my way with the facilities guys who would allow me to come up and then would escort me inside this lockdown facility and go see these stones. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of them, but they are very well known and very well cared for up there along the Pennsylvania and Maryland line. Right. They were set in 1765 by, Mason and Dixon to settle a boundary dispute between two very important families in the pre-colonial area, the Penn family of Pennsylvania, and then Lord Baltimore and the Calvert family, who had been awarded the colony of Maryland. Maryland, right. They couldn't figure out where their lines were, and so that was creating some tension. And these surveyors were sent over by the Crown at the request of the colonial governors of Pennsylvania and Maryland to set the boundary. And what they did was they had granite, regular arched, rounded granite stones. Mm-hmm. And when they found their initial point on what they call the Delaware Arc, they found their initial point, and they set a crown stone there. And the crown stones are white, and they're made out of marble. Yeah, I'm going to show one while you're talking about it, Perky. Yeah, I sent you a picture of one. And yeah, I've got a couple different kinds. So yeah, go ahead. And then on one side, you have the. I'll find it. Here it goes. Oh, here we go. Yeah, on one. Yeah, there we go. You have the coat of arms of the Penn family of Pennsylvania, and then on the other side, you have the coat of arms for the Calvert family. Right. And they'll say M and P for Maryland and Pennsylvania. So there is one. There's one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Go down, and then that's the Calvert family. Oh, this one right here. They're sort of their coat of arms, kind of. Right. Yep. And those are set every 5 miles. And then in between are the rounded ones. Oh, okay. Yeah, here's one. No, this is marker 55, Hoax Road. So you can log these, like that you found this marker number 60 at Garrett Road, Crownstone. You can because many of them now have been added to the National Geodetic Survey database, and so you can log those through geocaching.com. Okay. And find those. Okay, cool. Yeah, they're really, really cool. And everybody up there knows what those are. a lot of them are on private property, and if you go and you ask the homeowner if you could please come, they will usually give you a historical sketch about it, and then they'll take you over there, or they'll just send you off with their kid to go find it in the woods.
Yeah, tell that story, because that's a funny story. So you actually had that happen.
I did. I was driving around and I was looking for these stones, and I had been told about a really outstanding crown stone and given the address for it. And so I show up, and it's a farm, and I'm from Texas, right? And nobody knows me up there. And so I take out my Texas driver's license and I ring the doorbell, and hold up my driver's license, tell them why I'm there, that I would like to come see this crown stone. The lady kind of gives me this look, and then she says, yeah, all right, Steve will take you over there. And she leans back. She's like, Stevie. And then here comes this 5-year-old kid. And so he comes out, and he's got his dog with him. And then we picked up a couple of barn cats, and then we picked up the horses that were in the pasture, and we're all trooping through the woods. And then he takes me straight to it. And he knew a lot about it, and was talking about how his daddy kept bringing him over there and saying, this is on our land, and this is important historically, and you need to take care of this when this is yours. Right. And I'm trying not to have all the, I'm trying to shoo the cats away so they're not in my picture.
Right. Right. You're trying to take a photo.
Well, I mean, if they're pointed the right direction, right? If they're looking at me, they can be in the photo. If they're pointed the wrong direction and they're looking that way,
not really good for a photo. Right. So, exactly.
Right. So I thought, wow, that was really awesome. And to hear that the dad was passing it down to his son. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So, and we'll get into, like I said, we'll talk about logging some of these things. So, now there are different types, and that's the thing I think it'll be interesting. We'll talk about, and that is, go ahead. You got something, Jesse?
Yeah, so before we get to the different types, and I find something very interesting, and I want to ask one, because we always ask this question about how do you get into geocaching, but I'd like to know how you got into benchmarking, because I noticed you found more benchmarks than geocaches. Yes. It's almost the exact same, but you have actually found more benchmarks. So what kind of grabbed you, because you're obviously a geocacher first. And then you got into benchmarking, right?
Yeah, he wanted to go geocaching when I had little bitty babies, and so it was not on board with that. I'm not going to take little bitty babies who are not on the potty around looking for stuff. And later, I had little girls that would fight over what they found in those ammo cans, and one that would put things in her mouth and swallow them. So we're not going to cache. And so Steve says, well, I tell you what, let's do this. We'll look for benchmarks, and we can do that while we're caching.
Ah, there you go.
That worked. That really worked, because I really was interested in the historical aspect of benchmarks. Yep. And so the first benchmark we found was M246 in Fort Worth, which was on a right behind the Union Depot on this concrete box that's just sort of out, why? And then we go back and we look on the data sheet, and it turns out that's an old pedestrian subway from the 20s that has now been
wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And so that benchmark is right there on that thing. And that was something that the girls could find that did not have poison ivy, scorpions, black widows, barbed wire, fire ants, and things that you can swallow out of the ammo can.
Right. That's very true.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's a good example of something that people can do, or they can, and I think this is something that really can couple with your geocaching searches. And this is something that Susan and I have done. We did this when we were in Kansas, when we were at Moga, which was to find a benchmark, because we were doing all these other things. We're trying to we're doing a lot of cache types. We've talked about this before. And so we did a waymark, which someday I guess we need to do a waymark show. And we've also,
I can help you with that.
Yeah, that's right. You've done a lot of waymarks.
Yeah.
And 15,000. How many?
Over 15,000.
15,000. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
We may have to have Perky on for the Waymark Blasters too. So
that'd be awesome.
So, but it's interesting. And Jesse, you had a different experience in that you had a challenge that you had to be you wanted to do.
Yeah, and some people in the chat room are talking about there's some challenges in their area for benchmarks, which you can't do anymore, unfortunately.
Right, it's the old style.
The ones that are out there are still there; they're going to stay there. But you can't make a challenge for a benchmark anymore. But yeah, challenge is what got me into it, and I think we had one in our area that said you had to find, I don't know, it was like 250 benchmarks for the challenge. And you can't just let a challenge sit out there and not do it. So I was like, well, what the crap is this? Let me go find a benchmark and see what this is. So 250 later, and I could go sign, I could go do the challenge. But otherwise, I probably never would have gotten into it at all.
Right. Well, a lot of people don't even see these things. They've lived in their cities and they've walked past them 10,000 times, and they are just part of the landscape, and they don't even notice that there's a brass disc, on the front of the depot. Right. They just walk by it, and they never stop to think about what the import of that was.
Yeah.
Right. And for the numbers people, it doesn't count in your geocaching total. However, it does keep up with it on their geocaching cache page. So, I mean, you can tell when you pull up your geocaches, it keeps a running total of them there too. So it doesn't rate your total number, but it does keep up with them. So
and you can log most of your benchmarks on the geocaching, just not the ones that have been monumented within about the last 15 years.
Right. Because they're and that's something we really maybe could really push for with geocaching.com is if they just did a refresh of the database, they'd add all those back in, right, Perky?
The benchmark hunters have been working on that for a long time. But we refer to ourselves as the bastard stepchildren. I hope I can say that on the podcast.
Right.
And then the waymarkers say, well, wait a minute, what about us? We're worse than you.
Yeah,
We're beloved. But you used to be able to log a benchmark straight from the geocaching homepage, and then they moved us down to the bottom, and now you kind of have to back in the way.
Yeah.
So we're losing our visibility, but the benchmarking community is kind of small but pretty passionate. But what's interesting is that when a geocacher finds a benchmark, they're really excited about it. They're like, "Oh, cool! I didn't know I could log this too."
Right.
Yeah. And every time I see those guys, I want to say, "Waymarking, come look at us too."
Right.
Well, it's funny. Somebody mentioned Coon and Bud mentioned he has an FTF on a benchmark.
Awesome.
Which is quite possible, right? There's a lot of them that have never been discovered at all.
Perky's got a bunch of FTFs.
Yeah, I have a lot of FTFs, and it is because they've been discovered, but not on the geocaching side. So you'll see when you look at the data sheets that all the times that they have been reported to the government that's been found. And of course, benchmarks here are used every day, all the time by surveyors. But just you can say, "Hey, I'm FTF on this benchmark," because you're the first guy that typed it on the geocache page, and that's an FTF. Then you earned it, buddy.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, so show a couple that you actually have with you, and tell us why you even have them, if you would.
Okay. Well, here's the first one. This one, my husband got this one from Raytheon. This was on a concrete post like you were talking about, Gary. This was under the old water tower at Raytheon. And that tower had to come down to accommodate some construction.
Right.
And so when they did, you dig up the benchmark. This benchmark was destroyed.
Right.
And the government just gave it to, the guy at Raytheon, said, "Yeah, if you want it, you can have it." And he put it on his wall. And then when Steve Cox is working there, Steve's like, "Hey, dude, right? When you retire,
I want it.
I want it." And sure enough, he retired, and now it's hanging in my bedroom wall.
That's awesome. Yep. And
what they did was they took this benchmark, destroyed it, and then they moved it, and they made a new one, and it's called the new one is B184 Reset. And that was in front of the Raytheon building there for another 40, 50 years. And now B184 Reset has been destroyed because all of the Raytheon buildings were taken down and have been redeveloped.
Now, when they do that, Perky, if they've destroyed it now twice, will they just remonument it again, do you think? Or
only if that survey point would be necessary. If it's not necessary, they probably won't. And we can get into that. The survey is changing, right?
That's interesting. We'll talk about that in a few minutes of what they're currently doing. But you've got another one, so tell us about the next one you got.
The next one I have it's this one, and you can't really read it, but this also was on a concrete step of a courthouse in Oklahoma, and so it would have been flat, but you can see the stem of it that would have gone into the steps. And the day we were up there, they were taking out the steps and busting it up, and so I asked, could I have that benchmark? And and then the guy gave it to me in a huge chunk of concrete.
Right. So, how far down do you think that original spike would have gone? Do you think? What do you feel like?
About this far.
Okay. All right. That's really good to know.
Not that long.
Okay.
And I'll tell you something else. The difference between these two is very subtle. Okay. Most benchmarks only are horizontal control, only offer horizontal control. And what that means is that it's flat. So these benchmarks like this are all they have is a set latitude and longitude. Okay.
Okay.
But some benchmarks are also vertical control marks. And those benchmarks will have latitude and longitude, but it will also have elevation above sea level. And you can't really see that really well here on this one, I don't think. I'm trying to hold it still.
That's
but if you look right here.
I can see it. Elevation 526.
Yes.
526.233
above mean sea level.
Oh yeah, feet above sea level. Cool.
Yeah, so that will tell you that right there at that step, that's 523 feet above sea level. And that's important for maths.
Yeah, Berkey and I have talked about this before too. It's like we're just gonna say it's math, and that's as far as we're gonna go with it.
That's right.
It's about geoid height. It's about you use trigonometry and an angle of declinations and all kinds of stuff, and it just kind of makes my head explode.
Right, me too.
So that's what I know. But I will tell you that if you want to get started in benchmark hunting, I mean, really the easiest way to get started in it is when you're driving through a small town. If you see one of those 1920s 10-man tanks, just take a picture of it, because 9 times out of 10, that thing is going to be what's called an intersection station. Right. And if you can convince your
significant other or
person who's driving to go check the go check the legs that the tank is on in the southwest and northeast corner, and it'll have a benchmark on it.
Oh wow, yeah.
Benchmark would give you 1 point, you find another point, and then you can triangulate for that intersection station.
Right.
And then go from there and know where that is. So
now intersection stations, they're not making new ones, right? And they're pretty much all going away.
Well, they're still out there. You can still use them. They don't purge them from databases, but they don't want you to let them know that they're still there anymore. So church steeples would be an example of an intersection station. Television towers, radio towers, anything that's tall and that you can see from a long distance.
Oh, okay.
Is going to be an intersection station. So when I see tower farms, I always take pictures, and sometimes there's going to be 3 or 4 benchmarks up there. And the benchmarks are going to be the tops of the towers, or it'll be the base. It'll tell you where that is.
Okay.
Those are what I call my cheap and easy finds.
There you go. Yeah, because there it is. So.
Yeah, that's benchmarking in the air conditioning, y'all.
Right. There you go.
In my little town, it's smokestack towers. One of them in my town is actually a benchmark, so you can see it from like everywhere in town.
Chimneys, hospital chimneys, school chimneys, university chimneys, smokestacks from about the turn of the century, 1890s. All those old things that stick up. Those are intersection stations. Navigation lights if you are down on the coast.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good point too. All right. Well, let's log one. So Jesse found one. So Jesse, kind of tell the story.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll go from there.
We were out caching Saturday, and it actually went to a cache that I'd already found, but not on accident, actually on purpose. And but it was right at the Wyoming-Colorado border. And we were taking somebody, a brand new cacher out there, and we just happened to, remember there's a benchmark there. It had the little yellow or whatever it is, that orange stick in the ground.
That benchmark.
Survey marker or whatever it's, yeah.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
So we went there and we saw the benchmark. We're like, hey, take your picture with this and we'll explain it to you later what it is or whatever. But I haven't logged it. And I thought, okay, so I don't know what it is or anything else like that. How would I go about logging that benchmark?
So, do you want to share your screen, Jesse? And we'll let Perky
I can do that.
Walk you through
so let's see.
Perky, we're gonna let you walk him through it, and we're gonna show his screen so that people can then follow along as well as we go through the process. So,
okay,
here we go.
So here's me. I'm on the front screen.
Okay. Yep. I think the easiest way to get to the benchmark page is going to be to go to the cache page.
Okay. Let me type that in. So this was called My Stash. It's right there at the border, GC 5 QQ 1C.
Okay.
All right.
Remember, I told you kind of have to have to back into the benchmarks. So you see, that there's find all nearby benchmarks. You're on
click on that.
Not the two. I found the one on the 287.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So you're on the I-25.
Yep, this is on I-25.
Okay. So here are your benchmarks, the three closest ones. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you notice that there's a thing called a PID. That is
right here.
That is the unique identifier for that benchmark in the government database. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see that's distance, right? That's distance to the cache. And then your designation here is the name of the benchmark that is stamped on the disk. Okay. So this disk here, this would be that I have the designation is B184.
Right.
So if your benchmark that you found is on the National Geodetic Survey database, then it's going to be right there. But if it is
this number here, the PID number, is going to be stamped on that benchmark?
No, that is not on there, but the designation would be.
Would be. Okay, gotcha.
So in this first one here, the SW16117.
Yes. So you might want to go take a look at that one. Now, my suspicion is, since it's 0.4 of a mile north of the cache, my suspicion is that your benchmark is not going to be on the National Geodetic Survey database. Okay, so let's go down and take a look at it.
Okay.
Now here is is this up there? Oh, this is up there. Is this at the Terry Bison Ranch?
It's right along the highway where the state sign is.
Okay.
Where it says "Welcome to Colorado" when you're coming back in from Wyoming.
Yeah. Okay. Go take a look and see. He's got some pictures. Go down there and see if that's your pick. If that's your benchmark.
This is Bison Ranch here.
Is that what it looks like?
That is not what it looked like.
See, there are a lot of different kinds of benchmarks.
But you've already logged that one, Jesse. This is one you haven't logged yet, right?
This is one I haven't logged. No, this is somebody else's picture here. That was King Tiger found that one.
Oh, but I'm saying if you go back a page, doesn't it show the ones that you found?
Yep. If you go back a page, so
see, it shows that you
didn't find those, did I?
Oh, but it says the late. Oh, so that's not your smiley face.
It was found on 6/29 of 15.
Oh, okay,
but not by me. So the last person that found it was a buddy of mine, actually. But
I got you. Okay, so but
I can go down here and I can look with these.
See, I don't think
that'll give me some
benchmark is on the National Geodetic Survey database.
Oh, okay.
No, because it definitely wasn't 0.4 miles away from the benchmark. It was about 50 feet away from the benchmark.
From the cache, you mean?
From the cache.
Oh man, that's a neat looking one though.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
I'm gonna have to go back up there and find that one.
Now, cities do benchmarks, Okay, state highway departments do benchmarks. They put benchmarks along the right of way. They counties, and not all of those different survey disks that are important for local reasons make it into the National Geodetic Database.
Okay.
So cool. You may have a benchmark that you cannot log on geocaching, but you could still create a waymark out of it.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And so just because it's on the National Geodetic or on the National Database site doesn't mean it's going to be in geocaching either, right? Because they scraped it for a while, but they didn't get everything, did they?
Well, that's I think the geocaching database took every national database benchmark from 2003. And so if the mark has been set within the last 15 years, it's not going to be on there. And there are a lot of new benchmarks now that are what they call continuous operating stations, CORS stations.
Okay.
And that's just an antenna that just beeps out its latitude and longitude all the time. And those are NGS benchmarks, and they are not loggable. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Wait, you just show it again. Show it again, Jesse.
I was trying to flip it around. See if it'll show there. Oh, it keeps flipping.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's the one you found?
That's terrible. Okay. Ground anyway. It was still concrete around the benchmark, but that's not a close-up photo, so.
Yeah.
That's okay. So, all right. So other than doing what we did, I do want to talk about, Perky, a couple other websites, which I think are incredibly helpful for people, because I think the key is the way we just showed it is a way that most people can find a benchmark. But
on the geocaching database, right.
But I wonder if let's talk about this other website. I'm going to bring it up on my page and have you talk about it too, because I find this to be another, if you really want to kind of get into this a little bit more, and you want to kind of do it instead of finding the benchmark based on where the geocache is, you could kind of do it. If you want to just going to search for a benchmark, you could also use this other website. And so I'm going to pull it up, and Perky, if you would kind of walk us through the Scaredy Cat Films.
I was going to say, website. let me talk to you a little bit about, Steve Cox does whatever it is that he does when he's putting his cache list together, right?
Okay, sure. Just do that first.
And then my job is to figure out what benchmarks I want to find. So all I need to know is, where am I going to be, right? And then I look at the scaredycatfilms.com benchmark viewer.
Right.
And you're going to bring that up, and then
I'll bring it up.
See where all of those benchmarks are around where I'm going to be. And the great thing about that website is that it will show you which benchmarks have been found and which have not been found. And you can click on the data sheet link, and you can also see if anyone has found it on geocaching.
Right. So we were talking about this one yesterday. This is my hometown here in Hunt County, and we were talking about this particular one.
Yeah, DN0097, that one. 16A. See, 16A. DN0097, that is the PID. Okay.
Right.
16A is the designation for it, which is its name. Okay.
Gotcha.
The DN007, that's its ID number. That's its driving license number, right? And then 16A is its name. Right.
And then it shows its last activity was in 2009.
It was recovered good.
Marked good by, looks like, a geocacher, which we know.
Yeah. Who would be out doing that?
We know and love, yeah, which we'll get to in a second. And there's a couple other things on this page that I think are interesting. There's the NGS data sheet, and there's the geocache page. So where do you want to go first, Perky? Do you want to go to the geocache page and then come back to the data
Let's go to the geocaching page first, and then we can and then we can come back and talk about the data sheet.
Okay. So
this takes you straight to the geocaching website.
Right.
And you can log it right there.
That's right.
Yeah. So you would go here. I'm not going to log it, but you get the idea. And then you would log this as found, did not find. you can mark it destroyed if you feel comfortable that you really feel like it's not there, right? Perky?
Yeah, I mark mine destroyed when I know they're gone, right? When you go to the radio tower and there is an apartment building on it, this is destroyed, right?
Right.
If I just think I didn't find it, I'll either write a note or I'll say, sorry, the benchmark blasters, whiffed on this one. There's no joy for us today.
Now, I think this is a good time to mention and have you tell your story about the fact that sometimes benchmarks are buried.
Yes.
Because over time, they might have been buried. So tell the story, if you will, about, we'll come back here in a second. Let me stop sharing for a second. So tell the story, if you will, about
Horton Magnetic.
Finding your buried benchmark with a rod in the ground and all that.
Well, we're benchmark hunters, and so we travel along with our caching stuff, our first aid kits and all that stuff, and then our benchmark hunting stuff, which is a garden trawl and an 18-inch long heavy duty, screwdriver. Also, something to scrub with and a little bunch of water so that we can dig up. And so we were looking for Horton Magnetic, which was a magnetic benchmark disc in the courthouse lawn there in downtown Horton. And we had found the 2 reference marks, but the station itself was not around. And a lot of times those magnetics would have been buried, but it's like, why is that not here? And it's like, let's just see. And so we walked it off, and I took my screwdriver and I went straight down, and it went pow, and I went, that is a benchmark. And so we dug it out. We dug down. It was about 6 inches deep. We're taking all the dirt out and cleaning it up, and took a picture of it and tried to take several pictures of it, because when we find a benchmark like that that's buried, it's usually been lost for decades. Right. And we try then to go and call the county surveyors and say, hi, guess what? We found a benchmark, and you probably didn't know it was there.
Right.
And a guy was really excited when we called him, and we said, look at our page, look at geocaching.com, and there's all our pictures for Horton Magnetic showing you where it is in relation to the statue in the corner.
Like, we never found that.
Yeah. And when we dug one up in Jeff Davis County, the guy was so excited that he slapped a witness post on that thing a couple of weeks later. And then 3 years later, when we were driving back through there, it's like, oh, look.
So a witness post is basically a pole with a note on it, basically saying this is where what is a witness post, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, modern witness posts are orange carcinite. And then do not disturb survey marker, and they're 4 feet.
Oh, okay.
So you can see
cool.
them. But the old style survey monument or witness posts were they were short metal signs, and they were maybe a foot tall or 2 feet tall, and it would say, please do not disturb nearby survey marker, right? And so you got to find that, and the thing might be buried, and so you got to kind of walk around with your little feet and your stick and tink. And so let me just, a lot of times those kinds of survey markers are in fence lines along right-of-ways of highways.
Oh, okay.
Gary, we live in Texas.
Yes, we do.
What hangs out in your fence lines, right? All kinds of little things that you don't necessarily want to mess with.
Everything.
Everything that will scare the snot out of you and put you in the hospital. And so,
I found one, by the way. Let me show people real quick. I don't want
those little metal ones are still out there. I've come across the little witness post metal signs too.
Yeah, here's one, by the way.
Set up like in the 50s and 60s, and that's the modern one.
Here's one.
That's the modern one.
Oh, yeah. So there's some. I should just. Here we go. There we go. This one right here.
Yeah, that's the modern one. Yeah. And you can, and since it's got the NOAA on it, you know that one's going to be on the see, it says right to the director of the National Geodetic Survey. You know that's going to be an NGS benchmark right there.
Right, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good witness. So if you see that, then you know that's a witness post.
And there's a benchmark there, and you're going to be able to log it on the geocaching website.
Right, witness post.
Nice.
Please don't disturb.
And those are all over the place.
Yes, they are. And
or if you find one like Perky did. They'll put one there for you.
That's right. They'll put one there later, and it's just like, hey, this this thing is about 8 inches under the ground there, and in Davis County. So there it is.
Perky, you mentioned your pictures that you showed that guy. Do you have a standard when you're logging something? Do you just put thanks for the TFTBM, or do you put pictures, or what do you do?
Well, it kind of depends. If it's something that everybody else has found, it's like, yeah, found it, right? If but I'm looking at the other logs. The other logs have good pictures. They have maybe extra coordinates. Then it's like I don't need to do all that, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm FTF, it's like, hey, this is where I am. Here's the picture from this direction. Here's one really close up on the benchmark, all these different directions, and where you can see the buildings in the background, and talk a little bit about how we found it and where exactly it is. Because sometimes the data sheets are not right. It'll say it's on the northwest corner and it's not. It's on the southeast, or we found lots of discrepancies in those data sheets before.
So why are those so far off? Is it just because of time, or did surveyors used to drink a lot?
I think it's because you've got surveyors who are out there and they're putting out, 10 or 15 benchmarks a day, every day, and it's easy to make those typos.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Here's the one we were talking about earlier, the DN0097. If you go down and you look, all these different people found them. Hey, a lot of friends. Kid Wrangler, Terraviators.
Yeah, all my buddies. I know all these guys.
I know, all these people. Kid Wrangler, Brass Rose.
Who is FTF on this one, Gary?
I don't know. Quadrate should have been me, right? I think I'm FTF. Let me take a look down here. Oh, no.
Oh, it's
Benchmark Blaster.
Well, hell, they're everywhere.
FTF, another cool one, is a benchmark hunting town. Rainbow Rocks, thank you. Yeah, so you had good notes here. This is a deeply chiseled cross on the stone railing on the south side. So you good 1897 MKTRR.
The Missouri, Kansas, and Texas Railroad.
Yes, it's the depot we have downtown here.
And if you're in there and you look down the street, there's a bolt on the building just across the street and kind of a little bit ways it down. That's your benchmark right there, a chiseled cross.
Isn't that cool, Jesse?
That is very cool.
Chiseled cross.
I've found ones that have never been found, and there's always a question about it, but it can be kind of fun to do.
I love the old ones, right? I love them all, but I love the old ones, and I love the chiseled crosses and the chiseled squares and Erickson's toe, which is the big toe on a statue of Leif Erikson on the tidal basin in Washington, D.C. That's
cool.
Right?
Wow. That's cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of really cool benchmarks up in D.C. if you're up there.
Right. All right. So then there's this other thing. We're not going to get into a lot of detail on this item, but I found it fascinating if people want to read a little bit more. So, you go to the page, you'll find the geocache link, but you also find this NGS data sheet. And you can bring up the data sheet, and the data sheet has a lot of cool info on it. And this is, so talk a little bit about the data sheet.
Okay, let's start at the top. Okay. You've got the designation, right, which is the name, the PIN, which is the driving license number. Mm-hmm. It tells you state, county, okay?
Mm-hmm. Right.
The USGS quad, that's the U.S. Geodetic Survey, right, which is a different branch from NOAA, right?
Okay, right.
But that just gives you kind of a bigger view, right?
Yeah, this one's Greenville Northeast, 1963.
And that was when that USGS quad was last updated.
Okay.
Now go down to current survey control, and you see NAD. That's the North American datum, 1983, which is the most recent rework of that datum. Okay, so this is going to be your most accurate information.
Okay.
And so you can see the position, 33 degrees, 8 minutes, 24.1 seconds north.
Right.
96 degrees, 644.7 seconds west.
Right.
And that's adjusted. That means those coordinates, that's where it is. Boom. It's on it. Okay.
And it tells you even how high, how your altitude, your
Tells you how high up you are from mean sea level. Okay.
561 feet. So very cool. And then
it'll tell you the last time they checked it was 1961. See, that says or 1991, excuse me. The orthometric height was determined by the differential leveling and adjusted by the National Geodetic Survey in 91.
Oh, so, right here, yeah.
Yeah, so in 1991, a guy was standing there and checking up off of the other benchmarks that are around in Greenville, and they use that.
Cool.
That's cool.
And the other thing I find interesting is that if you go out here, you can actually put in information, and of course it gives all the information about this particular one. It's in Greenville, southwest corner of the Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad Station, 57 feet north, et cetera, et cetera. But down here at the bottom, it does show there's a recovery note by Geocaching 2009.
That's me.
And that's you. LPC is
Laura
Perky Cox. So recovered in good condition. So there you are.
Now, this is a separate step from just logging it on geocaching. With this, you have to actually log into the government website there at NOAA.gov and then submit a report, a recovery report on this benchmark.
Right.
And we try to do that because that lets them know, especially when there's a guy that says he couldn't find it. It's like, well, guess what? I found it.
Right.
And the benchmark hunting community worked very closely with the National Geodetic Survey in the early days of geocaching to say, hey, we're out here, we're creeping around, we're finding these things. And on the geocaching website, if we find them, we would like to be able to report them.
Right.
Because at the time, the only way you could report that was they would only accept reports from surveyors.
Oh, okay.
They changed their protocol and they agreed to accept geocachers, and so they will say, are you, what is your status? And it's like, I'm a geocacher.
Oh, cool.
Say found 2009 geocaching, and then you put your initials there.
Wow, that is so cool.
So if you do that and send in that report and it's never been found before, I mean, if it's been found before and reported, they don't really care as much, right? But if it hasn't been found before or it hadn't been found in a long time and you report that, then on that data sheet, your information is going to show up there now?
It is now. And they do care because, things on the ground change. And they do care with some of these. Now, they're not asking you anymore for the intersection stations because those are obsolete. You're using your GPS now. You don't need to do all the complicated math and trigonometry and triangulations with the steeples and the tanks anymore. But for the discs, these discs are still being used, at least for now.
Right. Okay. Very cool. That's some great info, Perky.
I like that. Yeah, I've never reported one found before. I found them, on geocaching, but I think I want to take that extra step just for fun, just to see.
Well, we always do, and it's been really interesting. There's a woman there at the NGS when they come back to work. Her name is Deb Brown, and her job is to take all the reports of recoveries from the geocachers and enter those into the data sheets. And it takes her a few months to kind of catch up because there's so many of us running around and doing that. But eventually, you'll see your name and your recovery and your initials there, and it's actually kind of fun, especially when the U.S. Power Squadron can't find it. Now, those are volunteers that were fanned out, several times, over the decades, and their job is to go out and try to find these benchmarks. And there was one out in front of the McLennan County Courthouse in Waco under a big magnolia tree. Thing was in a pipe. It stood up, a foot tall. It's got the big, cap on the top of it that says USGS benchmark. Power Squadron says,
not there.
How
could you miss it?
And
they're not geocachers.
And in there it says I found it. It's found as recovered as described. In other words,
it's right there.
It was we found it right the way they said.
Right.
That's like finding a cache when the last person didn't find it.
Right.
That is one of the best things. Oh, found it. Easy.
Found it right there. Snamo can.
Quick find. You just used my geocaching bush sense, and there it was. Ta-da.
Right. That's right.
You're right.
Well, we are going to talk about Canada and Great Britain tonight. We don't have a lot of time, but we want to talk about those here in a minute. But I do want to, because I think it's important, Perky, for you to explain to folks, because I didn't know this, and I think this is good for people to know. And I'm going to bring it up on the screen so you can describe what we're looking at, because, again, I think this is information that most of us have never had before.
Okay.
This is not a benchmark. No,
that's not. That is a reference mark, and it says that. Mm-hmm. Okay. It says, it says, right here on the kind of the northwest corner, it says reference mark disc. So it says U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey reference.
Right here. Reference mark, yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it says number 2, right? And it's got the arrow and it's pointing. Okay.
Yes, right.
Now that is for what you call a triangulation or a topographical station. Okay. That is a series of 3 or more benchmarks, could be 4, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
And the station is going to be in the center, and these reference marks are pointing at it. And so each one of those reference marks has its own set of coordinates, and then you use the triangulation to set that station. And so that's an extremely accurate station because you've got all of these other benchmarks around it to check the math. Okay.
Right.
So when you find one of these, if you turn and you walk on that same line, you're going to run into the station. And if you have the data sheet, which we haven't really talked about, but if you go back on the data sheet, it will tell you how far away the station is from reference mark number 2, and it will give you direction.
Very cool. Yeah. That's cool. The Cox family has actually used family members, right, Perky, who have stood at reference points and said, you told them, okay, start walking.
Yep. And it's like, and when you get to where you can, you're going to knock your sister over. Stop.
Right. Stop.
Because that's where we're going to go. There it is. Right.
We're going to hunt. Right. So if you find a reference mark, you really shouldn't log. You're close. It's kind of just think of it as more of a step 1 of a multicache. You found step 1, but you haven't found the final stage.
And each one of these has its own PID too.
Right. See, that confuses people, I think, too, is you're not, this is, again, not the benchmark. This is a reference mark.
But some of them are NGS benchmarks.
Are they? Okay.
Right. So some of them they have their own PID, but they are also a benchmark, and so they are in the database. And you can log them on geocaching, but most of them are not. Usually it's the station, and these reference marks are not on the geocaching database.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, good to know. All right. So let's switch gears a little bit if we can now. And let's talk for a few minutes let's start with Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Our home and native land.
The Capital Lot playing the Montreal Expos. That's where I was.
The Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. There you go. There, and then we'll talk about Great Britain, because I think you found one that's fascinating, and we'll kind of get to as we start to get to the end of the show. I do want to talk about the ones on a bridge for that, but in general, what can our Canadian friends? How can they look for, and how can they look for a benchmark, and how have things changed from? Because in the U.S., benchmarks have never really been secret.
No, they haven't.
But in Canada, they were a little bit secretive, I guess, about their benchmarks.
Well, it's not just Canada. It's kind of coming out of that European model where this was government information for government purposes. And why do we want to put all this out there so that people can just come and vandalize or mess with it? Because this is important stuff. We don't want people to be, chipping on them. So, you really did need to have a need to know, for some of this stuff, whether it's a survey credential or, a reason why you're calling.
Right.
And when we went to Canada, we wanted to find Canadian benchmarks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to do more than just find the border monuments, although those are really cool. We actually wanted to find real Canada benchmarks. And we used we went through the Department of Natural Resources. It's a government website. And we were able, with great difficulty, to kind of figure out where a few were in Canada. And we've got there. I am going to look here on my foreign benchmarks. And so we were able to find those, and we were able to pick up their PIDs, and then find them.
Mm-hmm.
And their station names were, kind of difficult for us because they were much longer.
Okay.
But it was worth it to go find those. And even though the website was not as easy to use as the one in the United States.
Okay.
But in the years since we had been to Canada, I think they've kind of lightened up a little bit more. They've added more benchmarks to the database, and I think that it's not as difficult to find benchmarks now through the government portals as it was when we were starting.
So can any of those be logged on geocaching.com, or only the ones in the U.S.?
Only the U.S. benchmarks are in the database for geocaching.
Okay. For now.
Probably, yeah. Well, forever, because like I said, geocaching headquarters does not love benchmark hunters.
They may change their mind.
Well, you were saying, hey, let's send them a little love. Hashtag.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, benchmark hunters of the world. We would like you to please help us out in your geocaching.
We can just trade it for Earth caches, and we'll be good.
We're not. Perky doesn't know about your love / hate. Your love-hate, because you got both. You love.
Well, we have Earth caches, so I love my Earth caches.
There you go. So there you go. She loves them. So, but if you want, you can you do like a spreadsheet. You keep track of them, and
I do.
Okay,
I've got it up next to me.
Right, but the other cool thing is when you find them, take a photo and share it on Twitter or Instagram or somewhere, because those are cool when you find them. I mean,
you can now, but in 2004 when we started this silly adventure, wasn't any of that. And so I have all of my pictures, and they're all in files, and I've got my my photo 9 August 2013 2320 is of Canadian benchmark 74 M637 in Winnipeg, so I can find that picture.
Cool.
If you want it, man.
Just like that. That's awesome. So they also do the crow's foot that you showed earlier,
because they are a British Commonwealth, right? And so they're going to do things kind of the British way. This is the common crow's foot, right?
Right, exactly.
So, but they also do the plate benchmark, like the British also do, which are metal plates. I can't draw that. It's a metal plate, and it's a rectangle, and it actually does have that bench where you can stick that pole.
Oh, okay.
And it will say OSBM for that's the Ordnance Survey benchmark. Right. And it'll have the name on it. And I found a couple of those also in London, over around the Imperial War Museum.
Oh, and so that's a good segue to Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit first about the Blackfriars Bridge.
The Blackfriars Bridge.
Yes.
Well,
and what you found when you got there?
Well, we were going to walk we were over staying near the Waterloo Station. And so Blackfriars is not that far. And we wanted to go to the Blackfriars pub, which was part of a monastery back in the Middle Ages. And so really wanted to go there. And so we were walking down the Blackfriars Bridge, and I looked over to the side, and there is a crow's foot benchmark on the bridge. And I was very excited. So I took a picture of it, and I'm standing looking at my picture, and I look up, and there's another one right across the street.
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Well,
how's it across the street?
Because in the United States, you put your benchmark, and then there may not be another one for a lot of miles, right?
Right, exactly.
But they put those crow's feet in the United Kingdom. They've got 2 at the front, and then as you walk all the way down the bridge, there's 2 in the other end. So that's 4 benchmarks on one bridge. And I learned that that there's 4 or 5 of them on Victoria Station. There's 4 or 5 of them on the Commerce Building. There's lots of them all over the place. I am not making this up. Okay. Think about this. Wrap your head around this. There are 3 of these chiseled into the rocks at Stonehenge.
Oh, seriously? Really?
Seriously.
Illuminati.
But I couldn't get close enough to take a picture of it where you could see it, because they got. Sometimes they'll put black paint on them and you can see them really, really well.
Right.
But this time you couldn't. But I could see them, but I couldn't take a picture of it. And I was just, I thought, well, that's really kind of horrifying if you think about it.
Right. Somebody chiseled that into a monument.
Really? You can't just put that over here. You've got, put it on there. Oh my Lord. Right.
And then finally, something else that's interesting, because if you really get into history, which Jesse and I, and you as well, love history so much, that you also found something else that I found interesting, and that they're London coal tax posts.
Yes.
So what's a London coal tax post? Because
they're real cute. They're iron posts, and they're painted white, and then they have the coat of arms of the City of London on it, right, which is the Red Cross.
Right.
And they're about hip high on me, so a few feet tall. And they mark the boundary where if you were bringing coal into the city, you had to pay a tax.
Right.
So
you passed that mark.
Right. They were installed, I think, in the 1870s,
right.
1890, during the reign of Queen Victoria was when they did that.
Wow.
And I learned about those on waymarking, and so I was going to absolutely have a London coal tax post to my credit when I left London.
Right.
And I used, because I had such a hard time using the British government ordnance survey for benchmarks, I just used waymarking. The UK benchmarking community over there, very good about putting all those crow's feet around and plates. So that was helpful. And then London coal tax post was its own category. So we were out there poking around in fence hedges, and it was just a nutty time in the dark looking for a London coal tax post.
That's awesome. Of all things, and try to tell somebody, man, what are you doing? Well, I'm looking for the London coal tax post.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
I actually had a guy ask us what we were doing in the hedge, and he says, well, it's down there on the, next to the Thames. It's like, or the Trent and the river.
Yeah.
We've seen that one. Now we're looking for this one.
Right. This is a different thing.
Helping us,
That's awesome. Well, cool. So
somebody in the chat room has got a question.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to ask about Coast Guard types.
What do you mean Coast Guard types? You mean like navigation beacons?
I don't know. You got me. I don't know. That was their question. I have no idea.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of benchmarks along the coast. There are lighthouses or benchmarks. Those are intersection stations, but they may also have, the flat discs associated with them. A lot of times the navigation beacons, the ones with the day boards on them, those are going to be benchmarks. If you have lights along a jetty, a lot of times those will be benchmarks because they're things that aren't going to move, right? Channel markers are benchmarks. All of those are intersection stations.
I guess some of those that they were talking about, Perky, is the fact that I think that the Coast Guard set up some of their own benchmarks, and that's you were talking about earlier, that there are some different, like you're talking about, cities might do some, states might do some, and apparently the Coast Guard created some of their own.
Well, so did the Army Corps of Engineers, for example. There's an Army Corps of Engineers benchmark on the Jefferson Street Viaduct in downtown Dallas. And a lot of those are done along floodways. Those are to monitor the river and and just see where the flooding is. It's for hydrographic studies.
Right, right.
You have tidal benchmarks that are monumented by the National Ocean Survey. Some of those are also in the National Geodetic Survey. They've accepted those because
okay.
they have the right level of rigor on the latitude and longitude. Not all of the titles are in there, but some of them are. And so, you can always tell which kind of benchmark that is, because it'll say National Ocean Survey and it'll say tidal benchmark. But like I said, it might be on the NGS as well.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, Jesse,
can I take 2 seconds just to say?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. We kind of touched on it very briefly, but I really don't want to leave before I tell people that benchmark hunting can be dangerous.
We were going to talk about that. I remember that.
And so if you're going to be a benchmark hunter, because geocaching will not let you place a cache on a railroad bridge, over the Mississippi River, but there are benchmarks on railroad bridges, and sometimes they're at the center of the bridges, and sometimes they're on the ends. Right. So use your discretion, use your good judgment. I used to think that it was okay to go look for these railroad bridge benchmarks until I was in Richmond and I got off the railroad bridge. And listening for the trains to come by, I got off the railroad bridge, and then a train blew right by me about 3 minutes after I got off the bridge. And what I didn't know was that Richmond had a quiet zone, and so that train was never going to blast its horn. So no notice, right?
Very, very dangerous. Yeah.
Now this sounds interesting a little bit. T5 benchmarking, I like it.
T5 benchmark.
Not cool. Not
cool. Well, and there's also Perky. You talked about that. Some of them have lids on the
and guardians, right?
Oh, if you have a lid, if there's a lid on anything out in the wild,
poke it with a stick.
Something's going to figure out a way to get underneath that.
That is correct.
And right now they have modern benchmarks that are metal rods, and they are encased in a sleeve that has a metal lid on the top of it, and you flip over the lid, and then the metal rod is in there. And
along with who knows what else.
Well, let's see. What have we found in those metal rod? We have found spiders. We have found tarantula exoskeletons. We have found black widow spiders, live ones.
Yep.
We found what looked like a little scorpion tail to me. I didn't look at it that closely. I was out of there. We found small grass snakes. Right.
Yep.
We found all kinds of little bad things in there.
Right.
And the same thing when we were talking about the benchmarks along the roads. If they're in West Texas, I have my stick and I run my stick around, and I've had jackrabbits run at me, and I've had all kinds of things that you can just kind of see them slithering away, and then I'll lean over and I'll take a picture of that benchmark. Yeah.
So really, it's just like we've tell everybody else, is that. Just like geocaching, if you don't stick your hand inside of a tree without knowing that there's absolutely nothing in there that's going to bite you, or you don't turn over a rock just with your hand or something. That's like you said. You bring a stick with you, use it, and use caution.
Wait, we're not supposed to do that.
We flipped the lid over in the wintertime in Virginia. For a unique disc type there at the University of Virginia in the winter time. Okay.
Winter
time, right? Which is when, that's your best time to go geocaching, right? In Texas, because everything's dead.
Or dormant, right?
So we flip that lid over, and who's on the bottom of that lid but a black widow spider?
Yeah.
I mean, I just totally had not expected to see that thing. I lost my mind. I admit it.
Perky will jump and scream if need be.
I did, but I just want to say again, stay off the railroad infrastructure.
Yeah.
I almost slid all the way down a railroad embankment and went flying landing on a concrete culvert, chasing a chiseled square in Bastrop County because I'm standing on the railroad ballast, and it was a lot of it. It was very high, and then all of a sudden it gave way. And it's sliding, and I'm going, and I'm going to go over the culvert, and I'm landing, and I'm by myself. It's, and nobody knows that where I am, right?
Yeah, dangerous, way too dangerous.
And so I spread out. I spread out as far as I could, right? And I'm going along.
Slow yourself down.
And I see a little twig, and I grabbed this little twig, and I thought I'm going to pull this little bitty tree that's this wide out, and that thing held me.
Wow.
I don't know how, and I can't, and it was within 2 feet, and my feet were about to be hanging over the culvert, and I was able to kind of ooch my little butt over that and get on something that was a little firmer.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good point. So, Jesse,
we got another question, and this may have to be explained. Burnt Turtles asked if there's an update or something coming up in 2024.
For the National Geodetic Survey.
It's on their website. I think you probably saw that.
Okay, is that what that's from?
Yeah, there's I saw that on their website. We may have to go read more.
I'm not sure what exactly that is, but they update their stuff pretty.
2022, there's a new datum's coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's going to.
I don't know if that'll translate to geocaching, but that's probably just for them, right?
Well, it'll affect the benchmarks, because it's going to essentially, probably render a lot of benchmarks obsolete unless they change up all the data sheets to reflect that new datum and the new coordinates.
Yeah.
So benchmarking could get hard really soon.
No, it's going to be the same. It's just going to be, you're going to have another step if you're a professional. If you're just a geocacher, do you care that whether you're using NAD 24 or NAD 83? It doesn't matter. So that's going to be a full-time job for the government guys to update all of those data sheets. But it shouldn't really do much for us out running around. Because we're not using a lot of times these coordinates anyway. We're just we're kind of tripping over them, or we've just kind of got our GPS or our iPhones to kind of get us in the general direction, and now we're bushwhacking.
Right. Right.
Very cool.
Or digging up courthouse lawns.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, so be careful doing that too.
We did have a cop ask us what we were doing once, and we told him we were looking for a benchmark, and you could tell he didn't know what that meant, but he decided that it sounded fairly harmless, and so he says, "Well, have a good day."
Yeah, I'm moving on.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to deal with you guys. Y'all look pretty
funny.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, you want to anything else you want to mention, and we're gonna as we wrap up tonight.
We barely scratched the surface tonight too, and it's obvious you have tons of knowledge on this. I didn't know much about benchmarks, and then I went to GeoCoin Fest in Nebraska. I don't remember what year that was, but one of the breakout sessions they had there was about benchmarks.
Oh, cool!
And tons of information, more than they could even cram in like 45 minutes. Right? It had somebody that that worked for USGS maybe, or was involved on that side of it, and really explained kind of what you scratched on today. And we could talk for another 3 hours on all the different types of benchmarks and where they are and what each thing means. And that data sheet has tons of information on it. So it is actually pretty exciting. And it ties into geocaching because it's on your geocaching page. And there's challenges out there for it. And there's tons of waymarks for it. And so it is tied into the game. It's an offshoot, but everybody has their own favorite thing. But maybe get out there. If you haven't done one, get out there, try one, just see if you like it. Some of them are pretty fun, and they're pretty vague, the information that's on the sheet, if somebody hasn't found it before. So it's just kind of like a letterbox or whatever. Get out there, try one. Maybe even get out there, find one, take your picture with your coin in your hand. That'd be cool. Then it stays in there forever. Green or black or whatever coin you have, take it out there, and that'll be there forever. So everybody that ever sees that'll be like, "Oh, what's that coin?" That's cool.
What's geocache talk? Yeah, what is that?
But get out there and give it a try anyway. I mean, they're pretty fun. I found some, and I think I'm gonna go find some more just for fun because I haven't done any in a while.
Well, great places just to go if you just want to kind of maybe trip over one would be train depots, city halls. Post offices, or just call your local surveyor in your city and say, where can I find an NGS benchmark? And they'll let you know. And then you can get into it.
Yeah,
very cool.
One more little
there you go.
Discoverable Christmas tree.
Oh, there yeah. Bring that up. Yep. There it is. GXYDEQ. Definitely. Yep. Do that for her.
Yes.
I just put it in the chat room too. So
thank you. And we would love to have everybody discover her Christmas tree. And I'm happy to come and talk to you. We didn't talk much about the history of benchmarking, how it started, and how long it's been. It's been part of this country since before this country was a country, right? Because we were talking about the Mason and Dixon line. That's where
the colonials, right?
Right. So there's a lot more to talk about, and I'm happy to come back if you guys ever want me to.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. We think it'd be another cool show to do. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Perky. It's been fascinating and been great. We really appreciate it.
That I sent you, Gary. You can do whatever you want to put them on the website, whatever you want to find.
Yeah, we'll put them on our Instagram. I'll put a bunch of those on the Instagram as well. Kind of help people sort of increase the awareness as well, because I think it's fascinating. And
I would start with benchmark discs.
Yeah, the regular discs.
Get into the weird ones, the meridian stations, the astronomical stations, the chisel squares.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll have to. We're gonna have to get some more information put out there eventually. There's no doubt about it. There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
But that's all we have time for tonight. So
yeah.
All right. Upcoming shows, as I mentioned, Steve Weeks will be on next Sunday. The talk about the travel bugs and the sort of the resurrection of the travel bugs, and we're gonna play some songs, or he's gonna sing us some travel bug songs. And if you ever listen to our audio podcast, you'll hear the travel bugs at the beginning every week. He does a little Geocache Talk song. So that's kind of cool. And then the next week, we are not going to have a show. It's Super Bowl Sunday. For you that are international, because we have a lot of international, many countries, over 60 countries listen to the show. And it's kind of a rite of passage, I guess, in the U.S. We celebrate the Super Bowl because a lot of people have parties or different things that they do. People love to watch I love watching the commercials as well as the game.
Right.
Some people love watching the halftime show because there's always a band on. It's a Maroon 5, so I don't really care personally, but some people might enjoy that. But anyway, by the way, it's Pats and Rams this year, in case you're wondering. Patriots won that game that we missed the second half with on that one, Jesse, but that's okay. And then in 3 weeks, we've got something special. So once in a while we do a topic, because we always try to have cool guests like Perky on, but once in a while we'll do a topic. So in 3 weeks, show 135, we're going to do something interesting. We're going to battle Nano versus Ammo Can, David versus Goliath.
That's
in
right.
a battle royale in the ring, in the octagon. Nano versus an Ammo Can. We're going to see who wins, and we're going to talk about it. And we'll referee, or we'll be the judges of that, and we'll score that bout. And
That's
Jesse
right.
and I'll talk about Nanos versus Ammo Can. So anyway, all right. Well, hopefully you enjoy the show tonight. If you have any comments, email us, geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We're really working hard on all that. And also Facebook, facebook.com/Geocache Talk. This show can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spotify. And also always you can go out to the Geocache Talk website, geocachetalk.com. Show notes are up there. We have a lot of cool, this week we'll have a lot of cool show notes for sure. Lots of cool links that you want to get to. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button below and ring the bell down there so you will get reminded when the show is on every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us. You can be involved in the live chat room each week, and it's always hopping, right, Jesse?
Absolutely. It was again tonight. Tons of stuff going on in it.
That's cool. Yep. That's why we love having the chat room to discuss what we're talking about. And so it really kind of is cool to have that. So, all right. Well, until next week, don't just talk about geocaching. Go find a benchmark.
Right there.
Label it, right, like Perky's showing. And go geocaching. Good night, everybody.
Good night.